The German charity ship carrying migrants is docked in Malta after the country agreed to allow the ship to dock in its territory. Some 230 rescued migrants have been on board the ship for almost a week after Italy refused its entry to its ports. Maltese Prime Minister Joseph Muscat has said 7 European Union countries had offered to share the burden of the migrants with Malta. U.S. House of Representatives have defeated Republican compromise bill aimed at providing long-term protections to dreamers brought to the United States illegally as children and dealing with the crisis over immigrant children being separated from their families. The vote has cleared the way for the House to debate an immigration measure more narrowly targeted at addressing family separations. President Donald Trump has said that the Republicans from the U.S. House of Representatives will either pass an immigration bill or will come back with a different proposal. Now, Trump had demanded that Congress resolve the family separations with legislation in the face of an uproar at home and abroad over the separation of more than 2,300 children from their parents as a result of his administration's policy of zero tolerance towards illegal immigration. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin could take place possibly in Helsinki and could be after July 12th NATO summit in Brussels. And Trump said that he will discuss the war in Syria and the situation in Ukraine with his Russian counterpart. Trump, who said that he wants better relations with Russia, last met Putin in November in Vietnam on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific summit. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has said that he is confident that North Korea understood the scope of the U.S.'s desire for a complete denuclearization. The two countries are negotiating the denuclearization process after President Donald Trump's summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Singapore on June 12th. Pompeo also said that he would be leading the continuing talks with Pyongyang about its denuclearization. U.S. Secretary of State has said that President Donald Trump believes that Russia should be part of discussions affecting global foreign policy issues. Mike Pompeo's comments came as Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are prepared to meet next month. Pompeo told a Senate committee that Trump would emphasize during any meeting with Putin that Russian meddling in U.S. elections was unacceptable. Prince William has paid the first official royal visit to the Palestinian territories during a refugee camp in the Israeli-occupied West Bank and voicing hope for peace in a meeting with the Palestinian president. Prince William II, in line to the throne, will receive a red carpet welcome from the Palestinian government. The prince then visited the Jala Zone refugee camp and its health clinic, which is administered by the United Nations Relief and Works agencies. In fact, Prince William told the Palestinians that they had not been forgotten and that his trip to the West Bank was a very powerful one. It was one of the most politically sensitive visits yet undertaken by the prince on a day which took him from the Israeli coastal city to Tel Aviv to the hilltop offices of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the occupied West Bank. The U.S. Supreme Court has dealt a blow to organized labor, ruling that non-members cannot be forced in certain states to pay fees to union representing public employees. The 5-4 ruling overturned a 1977 Supreme Court precedent that had allowed the so-called agency fee that are collected from millions of non-union workers in lieu of union dues to fund non-political activities. The court ruled that forcing non-members to pay these fees to union violates their rights. A man has been charged with killing a counter-protester during a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia last year. He has also been charged with hate crimes. The rally gained international attention when James Field, plowed a group of pedestrians there. One woman was killed and dozens were injured. Fields faces state murder charges now in Virginia. Heavy rains have caused a flash flood in Greece. Residents of Magula town said that they were powerless and had to stop the rush of flood waters, which came pouring over the hills in two separate torrents into their homes within minutes. While residents cleaned their homes and streets, the nearby entrance to the highway to Athens flooded and was temporarily closed. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has met Venezuelan refugees sheltered in Brazil. Pence said that he was moved by the experiences of Venezuelan refugees. Tensions between the United States and Venezuela have intensified since Washington refused to recognize the May 20th re-election of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Both countries expelled each other's diplomats. Pennsylvania prosecutors have charged a Pittsburgh police officer with homicide in the shooting death last week of an unarmed black teenager. The latest shooting of a black man by U.S. police killings has sparked nationwide protests. The officer, Michael Rossfield, has surrendered to face a single criminal count for killing 17-year-old Antoine Rose on June 19th as the officer was searching for suspects after a drive-by shooting. South Sudan's president has signed a peace agreement with rebels, including a ceasefire to start in 72 hours. But the rebels have rejected other parts of the deal. An agreement made in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum, also aims to end a war in which tens of thousands of people have been killed. The framework agreement comes ahead of a final settlement and would allow access for humanitarian aid, prisoners to be freed, and a transitional unity government will be formed. A UN special envoy has met Yemen's exiled president in an effort to find a political solution that would avert an all-out assault on port city of Hodeidah, which the United Nations fears could trigger a famine. A military coalition led by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates has launched an offensive on June 12 to drive the Iran-aligned Houthi movement from Hodeidah, the port that serves as a lifeline for millions of Yemenis facing starvation. The bodies of two journalists and their drivers were killed months ago by the FARC rebels have been repatriated to their native Ecuador. Relatives held a solemn ceremony in Colombia where the bodies were turned over to them by the government officials. Holding photographs of their loved ones, they lit candles and laid white flowers next to their camera equipment. Ahmed Khatala, the accused organizer of the deadly September 11, 2012 attack on U.S. diplomatic compounds in Libya's Benghazi, has been sentenced to 22 years in prison on terrorism and other charges. Government evidence also showed that Khatala led an extreme militia which he directed to carry out the violence in Benghazi with. U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans died in that attack on the U.S. diplomatic compound in Benghazi. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has welcomed a U-turn made by the Polish government in its Holocaust law after changes made earlier this year caused uproar in Israel and internationally as well. In Warsaw, Polish president signed changes to the law, removing jail penalties for suggesting Poland was complicit in Nazi crimes. Heavy rains caused 2 rivers in eastern Colombia to overflow, affecting some 5,000 residents in Puerto Carreno. Residents are being evacuated and taken to temporary shelters. Authorities have been persuading flood victims to go homes of the families and friends as authorities are running out of space in shelters. The images from video footage as well by Colombian television showed that residents were rescued with their belongings from flooded homes. U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said that President Donald Trump's eventual nomination to replace retiring Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy will be debated by the full Senate this fall. Now, McConnell also called for a fair process and not one subjected to personal attacks. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he is launching an immediate search for someone to replace retiring Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. Trump has also said that he would draw from a list of 25 potential court candidates that his campaign and assembled during his presidential run. Activists have delivered a message of solidarity to immigrant children in the United States state of Texas. Community groups gathered outside the largest children detention camp where 300 children are being detained. The group is protesting the separation of families and the criminalization of immigrants. Activists have been demanding the Trump administration to stop caging and prosecuting immigrants. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with the visiting U.S. Secretary of Defense James Mattis in Beijing. President Xi said the world is undergoing major transformation and adjustment. James Mattis said that the United States attaches great importance to relations between the two countries and the two militaries, and military ties play a vital role in the bilateral relations. Britons have experienced sweltering heat for the fourth day, running on Wednesday, with many taking to the beaches across the country. Temperatures have now reached 30 degrees Celsius in Wales and was set to hit record high in June this week. Temperatures are expected to peak today at around 32 degrees Celsius. Britain's highest ever temperatures for June was 35.6 degrees Celsius, which was recorded in the southern port of Southampton in 1976. Groups in favour and against the legalized abortion held rallies outside of Argentina's Congress as the controversial bill legalizing abortion through 14 weeks of pregnancy makes its way to the Senate. In a tight 129 to 125 vote earlier this month, the lower house narrowly passed a law which would include abortion in the free public health system. The issue cut through political lines in the Catholic nation, with opposition members and allies of the president divided on the issue. Thailand rescued workers are still searching for 12 schoolboys and their soccer coach trapped in a flooded cave. Rescuers were seeking a spot in the mountain to drill a narrow shaft into a cave to locate the students. Thai volunteers and military teams have been deployed at the flooded cave complex, which runs 10 kilometers under a mountain in northern Thai province of Chiang Rai. Get you all the action from the world of sport now. The big news coming out of 2018 FIFA World Cup is the shock elimination of the defending champion Germany in group stage. Facing a must-win scenario in the qualification of the round 16, the four-time champions were handed a 2-0 defeat by South Korea. The loss ensures that Germany failed to qualify beyond the first round for the first time ever since. The two teams are progressing to the knockouts from Group F are Sweden and Mexico, with 2 wins in 2. Mexico had 1 foot in the next round, but they were handed a 3-0 pounding by the Swedes in their final group stage match. Despite the scare, the Central Americans progressed thanks to Germany's failure to defeat South Korea. Meanwhile, 5-time winners Brazil marched into the knockouts with a comfortable 2-0 win against Serbia. The self-chaos just needed to avoid a defeat in what was a must-win clash for Serbia. Now, goals from Paulinho and Thiago Silva ensured that Southern Americans finished as toppers in Group E. Also progressing from Group E are Switzerland, who were held to a 2-2 draw by Costa Rica. Vladimir Petkovic's side twice took lead through Blairam de Mays and through Dermot, but Kendall Watson's header and a freak own goal from goalkeeper also ensure that Costa Rica don't bow out empty-handed. Today's action begins at Group H, where Japan face already eliminated Poland. The Asian giants are still not assured of a place in the knockouts and are at the risk of exiting the competition if they fail to win. Now, Poland have nothing but pride to fight for, and they're risking finish their World Cup campaign without a single point for the first time in the tournament's history. In the other Group H, they encounter Senegal, and the Colombia battle it out for a place in the knockout stage. What is a straight shootout, Colombia kept their round to 16 hopes alive by thrashing Poland 3-0, thereby eliminating them. A draw will be enough for Senegal to progress, while a result better than Japan's will see the African nation finish the top of the ground. The group stage action of the World Cup concludes in Group G, with 1996 winners taking on dark horses Belgium. Both teams have already booked their place in the last 16 and share identical goals tally. Should either team fail to nick the 3 points, the group winner could be decided on their disciplinary records, in which Belgium currently trail. And the inconsequential Group G clash pits debutants Panama against Tunisia in Mordovia. Having lost their last matches, both teams are already eliminated and are battling for nothing but pride. Panama are searching for a maiden World Cup win, while Tunisia will look to bow out with a victory in their bag.